Not using a foreground in your landscape photography is a massive mistake with one caveat. Welcome to Landscape Photography University. If you're into landscape photography, that's what we talk here, how to help you get better. If you're into that, hit the subscribe button below and be sure to turn on the notification bell too. Here's the thing with foregrounds though. So often I get in the field and I start to teach people about photography and they don't understand what makes a great foreground. Let's start with the basics here. A foreground is just something in the very bottom of your composition that can pull somebody into the frame. Foregrounds are the introduction to your photography and your composition, so you want to make it stand out and be big, bold, in your face. Now there are different kinds of foregrounds that you can put into your photography. Number one, these can be things like leading lines that pull the viewer in and show them exactly where they need to be looking for your composition and what your subject actually is. These can also be what I like to call anchor points in the photography. So anchor points are just big objects that are in the foreground of the image that help weight the image down to the bottom, so that's where the viewer looks first when they're looking at your photography. Now, foregrounds have the ability to point people exactly where you want them to look, and that's what composition is just pointing people exactly where you want them to look in your frame in the right order. Now, doing this strategically with foregrounds is the big thing here. Not including a foreground can take away from how impactful you want a photo to look. So always try to include a foreground, especially when you're using a wide-angle lens. Now with a wide-angle lens, one of the tricks here is to take that wide-angle lens and point it slightly forward. What that's gonna do, especially with the widest it can shoot, something like 17 millimeters, is create a larger looking foreground and distort that so that it has more power in the composition and has more weight in the composition as well. Now in just a second, I'm gonna get to the caveat here and the big problem with foregrounds that a lot of photographers make. But first, if you want to improve your photography and have a better experience with your photography, then become a member of LPU Plus. This is $10 a month and it gives you access to all of our courses, our app, and our exclusive photography community of photographers who are just like you. That's linked down below in the video description and in the pinned comment. Now here's the big caveat with photography and foregrounds in your compositions is that they have to be useful. Number one, they have to actually point or direct the viewer to the next spot. So many times I see photographers put a foreground into the composition that don't point them anywhere or that don't kind of fit in the photograph. They're just forcing it into the image. Foregrounds are made to be that introduction point to the composition, but then direct somebody where to go second. Now, the next thing with the caveat here is not forcing a foreground into an image. There are photos that don't require a foreground, and these can be things like telephoto shots or small scene detail shots in your photography that don't even need a foreground. And if one's not there, don't force it in. Just try to think of other ways that you can frame up the scene in front of you. The only thing here, if you're not including a foreground, is that scene has to be so dynamic with high contrast or very interesting light that it has to be that much more impactful because you're not using a foreground in the composition to introduce people to the composition too. If you want more photography tips, click or tap on this playlist. It's going to take you to more videos that are going to help you improve.